Hello, my name is Etta Grace, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am interviewing R.K. Ashwick, who has wrote a few different books that I have interviewed on my blog before. The first was The Stray Spirit, and the second was Arrival Most Vile, which is in a separate series called The Side Quest Row. And today we are going to be talking about R.K. Ashwick's second book in the Spiritwell saga, or the Lutesong Saga, which is called The Spirit Well. And I really enjoyed reading this book, and I'm very excited to talk about it today.
Yay.
So, first, for a quick introduction, can you tell me a bit about yourself and how long you've been writing, and anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah. I am RK Ashwick. I write cozy fantasy romance. I have a cat named Leia who is currently sitting right next to me. So you might hear her meowing at some point during the interview. How long I've been writing? It's tricky to answer because like I've been writing for fun since I was little, but I didn't publish anything until 2022. And so if we're talking about like purely my, I guess, professional career, it would be 2 years.
Very cool. So, this is my first time reviewing a sequel, but this is kind of my first time interviewing an author about a sequel. So I'm expecting this will contain some spoilers for the first book in the series, The Stray Spirit. But I'll leave it up to you how much you want to divulge about the plot of The Spirit Well. It's only been out for about a week. So I'll do my best to keep my questions relatively spoilers free, but it's up to you how much you want to share about spoilers or not. So that being said, I think this is your first time writing and publishing a sequel, since your other book, Arrival Most Vile, isn't set in the same world as The Stray Spirit. So, what was the writing process like for this story as opposed to your other work?
Yeah, it was indeed my first time writing a sequel. And it was really difficult actually, because I wanted to make sure that I was following the thread of kind of where the characters ended at the end of the first book. Logically, it kind of made sense as they're moving into this new world. What makes sense as a next conflict, what external conflict ties into the internal conflict that I wanted the characters to have, and also how this plot could feed into book three, which I'm actually writing right now. And so I followed my normal outlining process. I do a very detailed, like spreadsheet outline, where I try to keep track of course, like the A plot, the character arcs, character appearances, other like hints and things that I need to add. Am I progressing things correctly? How many chapters do I have? Where am I hitting all like the major like climax beats and like the inciting, all that stuff. But it took a lot of drafts to get there, as it usually does for my work, but also because I'm trying to fit into a releasing 2 books a year schedule. I also had a little bit less time. And so that was really my first time trying to adhere to that schedule. And so, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, 2 books a year is a really fast turnaround. I'm currently trying to get my debut novel out in a year from now, and that seems daunting, much less 2 books a year. So I can only admire you for the amount of work that must be, um, especially with self publishing where you have to do everything yourself. That's absolutely insane, and all the more power to you for that. So, congratulations. I really hope this release was as successful as you hoped it would be. So, my next question is about our main character, Emery, who is a very anxious bard. And the first book really focused on his relationship with his family. And at the end of that story, where he was able to reunite with them, is one of the most heartwarming scenes I've ever read. And I absolutely love it. And in this book, they're not quite as present because that conflict has been dealt with, but his music career is taking off with his admittance to the guild, and there's a new assignment in the city of Matlock, or Matlock, if I'm saying that right. And so, how did you keep structuring his arc in a way that didn't really undo his growth from the previous book, but also kept challenging and growing him as a character?
Yeah. Because just inherently, he lives in a different place. He lives in Vornik. His family lives in Sen. And so I was like, okay, it makes sense that we're not really going to see his family a whole lot, but I wanted still to represent kind of that healing relationship that he has with them. And so I have them exchanging letters several times throughout the books. They're actually in much earlier drafts. Georgie and Marley were going to be present in the city, but they didn't add enough to the city, and they just kind of cluttered it with more characters. And so that was kind of a bummer because I love them and I wanted them to be in this story, but I just couldn't make it fit. And so yeah, I wanted to represent that, like, yes, he has this relationship with his family, but he is also moving on to other things, mainly about you know, trusting Cal and Aspen with things and not just saying everything is fine when it isn't, which is most certainly a habit that he has and has to unlearn.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it's really sweet that his family's still involved through the letters, though, because even though they might not physically be present in the book, they don't have any page time, so to speak, where they're physically with Emery. Um,
Hmm.
their their emotional presence is there because they're giving him advice and giving him a hard time a little bit too, in the good-natured sibling kind of way that they do. Um, and it's very sweet to see how he maintains a relationship with them even over a long distance. So the second character is Cal. I absolutely loved her academic wit and her determination, especially in the first book. And this one has scenes from her perspective. And so not only do we get to see her sharp mind, but we also get to see her softer side around her loved ones. So this book requires her and Emery to kind of divide and conquer as they attack the problem in Matlock from different angles and they're gathering information. So, how did you get into writing her POV and writing this dual POV story, and what was your experience balancing it with Emery's side?
Yeah, I really enjoyed being in Cal's POV just because we had never done that before. And it was nice to get both her very logical approach to things and very much like mapping out the problem, figuring out a strategy, but also dealing with scenarios that she's never been in before, like dealing with her rival and all of her just emotions that she kind of has to hide because she's in polite society, but she desperately just wants to like rip this guy a new one. And it's fun getting her thoughts there, and it's fun getting her giddy side when Emery is kind of officially courting her through the social season. Um, and so, but I liked having her methodical approach contrasting with Emery's like, I don't know what's going on. And how he approaches things, he's much more impulsive. He'll just kind of run into things. And Cal is very much not that way. And so I don't know. I enjoyed writing it, and I hope people also enjoy reading it.
Did you enjoy writing one POV more or less than the other? This isn't on script, but I'm just
Oh man.
curious.
For this particular one, I don't think so. There were always like specific beats that I was looking forward to,
Hmm.
in their POVs. For Cal, it was a lot of the romantic scenes that I was just a sucker for. And then of course for Emery, it's like the emotional. But then that's a lie because Cal also has a lot of really great emotional scenes with Emery that I was really looking forward to. I just liked it all. Does that work? Is that a good answer?
Yeah, that totally counts. I can't ask you to pick a favorite. That's
Thank
not fair. Um,
you. Thanks.
uh, Our last character is Aspen in the trio. Aspen doesn't get a POV in this book, but they are in a unique position because they're a spirit in a city where the spirits are dying, and they're also the only spirit that's like out in human society that's like talking and can manifest a body and that sort of thing. So, what was your favorite part about world building and the dynamic between the human and spirit societies, and how Aspen navigates these different worlds?
Yeah, I think this is actually the part that changed the most for this book because I was trying to sort out how people view spirits, how they would treat Aspen specifically, how Aspen would like that or dislike that. What parts of their new role are they accepting versus rejecting? It was a lot of me trying to figure out like what is Aspen's arc in this book? What role do they play? What do they want? What do they not want? And so yeah, there was just a lot for me to try to figure out there. And so what I landed on was people kind of treating Aspen like a bit of a fascination rather than sort of a whole being with thoughts. And so there's a lot of moments where they're like, "Oh, can you just grow me some flowers?" And they're like, "Sure, but I kind of have like bigger problems right now." And so that led to me thinking like, oh, they really want, I mean, human connection is great. They love their human friends, but they also really want spirit connection. There's, spirits have a unique view on society and a unique perspective that's different from humans and that they share with Aspen. But, kind of what's the natural complication to that? Oh, well, in book one, we had a lot of spirits who really weren't open to talking with Aspen. What if, that continues in book two, if spirits just kind of aren't used to the level of communication that Aspen wants, and that's an obstacle that Aspen has to kind of get through. Um, so that was, I started rambling, but that was kind of my plan for Aspen. And I will say that even though Aspen does not have a POV in this book, Aspen will have POV chapters in book three, and I am loving writing those right now.
Oh, I am so excited to see those. That sounds like it's going to be so much fun. Aspen is just such a
Mhm.
joyful, um, optimistic, and just like lovable character. They are always there for their friends and so unbelievably ride or die for Emery, and it's really, really adorable. I just, there are so many scenes where I'm like, yes, go Aspen, go. Come on, let's go. It's so much fun seeing how they don't quite understand human social cues or society at all, and they approach it in a very fun way. And I think just their whimsy is really appealing. So I'm excited to see how that manifests in a whole point of view as well in the next book. That sounds very
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying getting into Aspen's point of view because just as a spirit, they sense a lot of things that Emery and Cal aren't even aware of. And they just have a different approach to even just like standing in the middle of a square or a plaza. Like they have a different sense of just their surroundings than
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. They have a different form of communication with the other spirits. In book three, there's a bit of a time skip, not a big one, but enough where there are more spirits out in the world now, and there's a big gathering of them. And Aspen is suddenly kind of the expert in bridging that gap between human and spirit communication, and trying to bring everyone together. And so, yeah, they really kind of grow, pun not intended, more and more into sort of a leader of their own community. Of course, in book one, it's just Aspen. In book two, they're slowly starting to kind of break into the Matlock community. And then in book three, it'll only be expanding further.
That's so sweet. I love that for them. Um, that's really cool. The whole dynamic between the human and the spirits kind of reminded me of the spirit world in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Um, and
Mm.
so that's kind of the best point of comparison I can draw as like a comp title for reviews when I'm pitching this to my friends, because my friends and I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like we have a whole D&D game set in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I've been throwing this book at them, being like, "Read this. It's the spirit world." And so
I love that.
I'm super excited to see more exploration of that, and that was one of the parts I was looking forward to the most in this book, and it definitely didn't disappoint. So I congratulate you on that. And you
Thank you.
mentioned this before, you teased this a little bit before, but the romance in this book grows a lot more because Emery is formally dating Cal now and courting her in the Matlock social season, which has a lot of rules and societal expectations surrounding it. And in a lot of romance, it's defined by like the couple grows close throughout the story, and then the story ends, and there's like a big dramatic music swell, and they kiss, and then they're together, and that's the end. But here it continues beyond that, and they're together, and they're working as a couple, and they're trying to get engaged. And so what was your approach to this different kind of plot structure and character dynamic from your traditional like romance plot structure, if that makes sense?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely made it easier that it's a side plot or subplot and not the whole focus of the book. And so I didn't have to worry necessarily about like, okay, they, have to 3 dates, then the kiss, then the third act breakup. Like I didn't have to necessarily follow all of that. I could really just have fun with, um, okay, Emery's goal is to eventually propose to Cal. What are the kind of the natural obstacles in this world? And of course, in a Regency S world, there are plenty
Mm-hmm.
that he could go through. What would cause him stress? How would Cal signal those affections and kind of like what would that back and forth look like? And I also didn't have to worry too much about it being like high stakes, super dramatic, because again, it's a subplot, and so there's plenty of other stuff going on where I don't have to not flesh it out too much, but like I don't have to over dramatize that part of things. It could just be like a cute, fun part of the book, and I think that really helped me at least.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was a nice break from all of the high stakes spirit stuff going on too, where it's like they're both so busy and frazzled with all of the work that they've been doing, and then they just get a chance to relax together, and it's like a breath of fresh air for the reader too, to be able to step away from all of the high stakes threats that they're dealing with, and then just be able to rest with them for a moment. So I thought it was really adorable, and I'm very excited to see where they go in book three.
Yeah, thank you.
So well, next question is about the side characters. Your side characters are always so vibrant. I think I mentioned this in my first book review of The Stray Spirit. I loved all the side characters in that book, and then your other series, The Side Quest Row, is all about like the side characters in other people's stories. It's kind of like the D&D NPC book series, and I love it. So there's a lot of brand new side characters in this book, from the troopers to the academics to the garden spirits. So how did you develop them and balance such a large cast? And did you have any favorites? How did you go about establishing their personalities? Just like talk about your side characters.
Mm. Yeah, I think for the side characters, I was really looking for contrast,
Mm-hmm.
just because I already had kind of a largish cast of characters and I didn't want them blending into too much. And so Riley and Sage, they're the two troop members who are part of Carlson's troop that end up performing with Emery. They both, I didn't want them to be exactly like Emery, but I also needed them to be very different from each other. And that kind of generated like a natural conflict between them where they're not exactly rivals because they're part of the same troupe. It's just that they do not agree on most things when it comes to musical preferences and musical choices. And that doesn't help Emery as he is trying to fit into this new troop dynamic and make his debut a success. Just having that also to deal with is not helpful for him, which is always fun because I don't like making anything easy for him at all. Um, and so I would say they were fairly easy. I just had to make sure that I was getting like them the right amount of screen time and the right number of scenes together because in book three, they are still present, and I won't say exactly how because that's kind of a spoiler. But I do want a little side romance going on with them because the opportunity there for Emery and Aspen to be wing people of varying success will
That's
be very
very
fun
funny to
for
me.
me. Yeah. And
Yeah,
them
their
kind of like
bickering was
going
so much fun to
into.
read because they're constantly arguing with each other, but they're both like so supportive of Emery at the same time, and so it's almost like they're competing of who's going to be a better friend to Emery, and so it's a very affectionate kind of bickering, but they're also bickering constantly, and it's very entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I think, yeah, they Emery kind of like gives them a bit of a common ground. And they are both very enthusiastic about their troupe, about performing, and so that's kind of like the ground they can find themselves on. And then so at the beginning of book three, I would like for them to kind of start from that point of like being enthusiastic about what they're currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
But then also kind of dealing with these new feelings and but you're only seeing it from Emery and Aspen's point of view, so it's just seeing them like the idiots to lovers, like them they're bumbling and fumbling, and Emery's like, "Oh my God, I've been there before." Aspen's like, "Oh my God, I saw this with Emery," and so that'll just be kind of a fun subplot in book three.
That's really hilarious. um, were there any other side characters that we missed, or did we want to move on to the next
I
question?
think the other one that Cal talks to most frequently is, well, there's Lydia, who is the academic researcher in Matlock. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted her to I realized I didn't have a whole lot of older characters, so I was like, I'm gonna make her just like a fun middle-aged aunt to Cal,
Yeah.
and make her maybe a little bit different than what people would normally expecting a researcher to be. She's very open, she's very hands-on, she's very fun. And then, of course, there's Demir, who we saw in book one. He is he's Ella's manager for the guild, so he does kind of a lot of just like the grunt organizational administrative work when it comes to kind of running a troop. And then he also becomes Emery's manager as well, and he is very much uh, grumpy on the outside, mother duck on the inside. And that is actually going to come out even more in book three. And I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to break that man apart a little bit.
That's sweet. So in the story, we've mentioned it a few times. These characters are visiting the city Matlock during peak social season. It's Regency era. There's balls, there's garden parties, all sorts of revelry. It's a scene for everyone who is anyone. So if you could visit Matlock for the social season, where would we find you?
Oh my God. I would hate the Matlock social season. I would be, I don't dance. I'm an introvert. A lot of those parties tend to like go on for a really long time. So yeah, I would be at home as much as possible. Thank you.
Big mood.
But I guess if I had to go to any of them, I think any events like in the gardens themselves I would be like, all right, they're pretty gardens. I guess I'll go for a little bit. But you probably wouldn't find me in the middle of the ballroom.
I'm there too. I've heard of the saying somewhere that writers are writers because we are actors with stage fright, and we want to story tell,
Mm,
but we don't want to be
hmm.
the center of attention, and so we just make our characters do it for us. And I feel like that's very
Yeah,
applicable to
that really
Emery here.
tracks. Oh yeah, for sure. I like that a lot, actually.
So my last question is just kind of a freebie. I like to give this to all of the authors that I interview. But if there's anything that you want to talk about the book or your writing process that I missed, feel free to talk about it here. It's kind of a
Yeah.
free free question.
Um, sure. Yeah, so in The Stray Spirit, if anyone here has read that, or anyone listening has read that, there are illustrations in The Stray Spirit, and those are done in pencil by an artist named Lucia. She's in Spain. For book two, I ended up partnering with an artist named Tristan in Scotland, who works in ink, because I thought that ink illustrations would lend themselves a little bit better to kind of the more refined Regency vibe. Um, and so there are four illustrations in The Spirit Well, all done by Tristan. And I'm very excited for people to see those because I love them so, so much. And then in book three, because we're kind of going back to the spirit's roots again, unintended pun, so sorry. We're going in kind of into a darker forest with the oldest spirit as Aspen seeks advice on something important. I want to, those illustrations, I would like for them to be in charcoal because it's a little bit rougher. It's a little bit, it's certainly less refined than ink, a little bit messier, smudgier. And I just really want that look for The Spirit's Curse, which is book three. So, yeah, if you're someone who enjoys illustrations in your books, there will be three different types of illustrations all throughout the series.
That is so cool. I didn't put together the different types of illustrations. I was like, oh, maybe the original artist was just busy or something and she had to change, but that's so cool. There's a reason behind it and it ties into like the themes of the book. I had never considered that, and that is so cool. I am blown away. I just got the book today and I was having so much fun looking through the illustrations. They're all so
Mhm.
gorgeous. I know you put teasers of them up on like Instagram and social media and stuff, but the camera really does not do them justice. So I'm
Mhm.
so glad I have the physical copy now. But it's super cool, and I'm super excited to see the charcoal illustrations for the Spirit's Curse. And what an ominous title! What are you doing to my poor favorites? What are you doing to them?
It's not as dark as it sounds. It's a little bit the vibes of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia, except not nearly as dark as that.
Okay, I haven't read that yet, but it is on my TBR shelf. I have two bookshelves in my room, and the one of them is the shelf of books that I have read, and the other one is books that I haven't read. And on the shelf of books that I have read, I have my like shelf full of indie authors and Tumblr mutuals and writer friends, and so I was very excited to put your books up there on there today. So,
Awesome.
last question is just what else do you have coming? You said you're publishing a second book this year, and just where can people find you on the internet if they want to follow you?
So this fall, I am hoping I can release A Captured Cauldron, which is book 2 in the Side Quest Row series. So that is the sequel to Arrival Most Vile. And then I am really hoping that next year I can put out book 3 in both series and wrap both of those up. So that ideally in 2026 I can focus on new things. That would be very cool. That's also a pretty tight timeline for me, at least. So we'll see how it goes. And then if you want to track my descent into madness, you can follow me at RK Ashwick Books on Instagram and TikTok. And then I'm also on Facebook. I got a Facebook page. Of course, I should also mention I have a newsletter. So I send that out once monthly. I will usually have either some short stories or artwork or recipes on release day or just general kind of updates on how things are going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to include all of those links in the description and in the transcript and blog post and things like that. But thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
and congratulations again on the book release.
Yeah, thank you so much.